If you've ever been in one conversation, but your mind is in another, if you've ever been in one meeting, but you're still thinking about the last one or starting to plan for the next one, you're probably normal. But you're sacrificing effectiveness and impact if you don't learn how to be in the meeting you're in. Welcome to the Matt Ware Show, a podcast for leaders who want more and won't settle for less. Straight talk to help you lead better, live bolder, and not lose yourself in the process. If you're serious about going to the next level in life and leadership, you're in the right place. Well, hey, y'all, welcome to another episode of the Matt Ware Show, where we talk about getting better in life and in leadership, talk about going to the next level, growing to the next level personally and professionally. And today we're going to talk about something that is really practical, just sort of, rubber meets the road, kind of hits a lot of leaders right where they're at day in and day out. And that is the idea that you need to be where you are. Be where you are. And obviously, when I say that, I'm not talking about your physical presence. I'm talking about your mental presence, your emotional presence. Because what we all know is this: it's really easy to be one place, but have our minds and our hearts be in an entirely different place. It's easy to be in one meeting, one conversation, but be thinking about another one. And if you want to be effective in your life and in your leadership, if you want to make an impact, if you want to execute to your fullest potential, one of the most important disciplines you can develop is the discipline of presence. You have to truly be where you are. A few weeks ago, I posted a video that was just a quick, sort of recap of my morning on that particular day. And I described four totally different meetings that I was in the span of 4 hours that required me to be in totally different mindsets. I had to shift and pivot and totally change my perspective, my mindset to be fully present in those meetings, in those conversations. And it was interesting because I just, kind of threw that out there, on a whim because I thought it'd be fun. And I had multiple people comment and reach out to me directly asking me to talk about this more. And so, it was kind of this feeling of like, oh my gosh, you just described my day every day. And I'm drowning and I don't know how to make those shifts. I don't know how to be fully present, fully engaged where I'm at in that moment. Talk about this. Help me with this. So today's episode really is just something of a response to what some of you asked for. And I hope it's helpful because this is so important and so overlooked for so many people. One of the most strenuous challenges of any leader at any level is to be fully in the meeting they're in. And for those of you who didn't see that post a few weeks ago, I'll talk about that day again and maybe unpack it a little bit more than what I was, able to do in those 60 to 90 seconds in that clip. And that was, it's just one day for one guy, right? And so I was just retelling my experience, but I do think it's instructive for all of us in terms of how we can grow in this discipline of really being fully present wherever we are. On that particular day, I was in 4 meetings in 4 hours. I had a 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and 12 p.m. meeting. And I don't always stack my calendar that way, but that's how it worked out that day. And I know some of you can relate to your schedule looking like that, or maybe even more granular. Maybe you've got meetings every 15 minutes or 30 minutes on the calendar. And for me, every one of those meetings was entirely different. And so I'll tell you a little bit about them again, because I just think this illustrates, in some ways, maybe a typical day in the life of a leader, right? I mean, your meetings won't be the same as mine. Your context is not the same as mine. But this idea that you move from one meeting and one conversation and one interaction to another, and they can be entirely different and disconnected and pull on different parts of your brain and your emotions and your relationships and all of that, which is why learning how to be truly, fully present really does matter so much. My 9 a.m. meeting that day was with a group of people who were gathering together to just support and encourage and pray for a leader of an organization that I'm involved in. This particular leader had been dealing with some significant opposition and difficulty with, kind of one set of constituents in his organization. And he was frustrated, he was discouraged, he was confused. And so a handful of us got together to just be a support and be a strength to him. My 10 a.m. meeting was with a group of guys who are friends, we're comrades, we've known each other for a long time, and we push each other, we hold each other accountable, we give each other input and advice on things, both personal and professional. And in that particular time, we were in the middle of this big group challenge we were doing together to kick off the first part of the year. So this meeting was just sort of a check-in, on our progress and how we were navigating all that. My 11 a.m. meeting was an initial conversation, what you might call like a discovery call, if you're in that line of work, with a business owner in another state who was stuck and stalled and frustrated and just looking for some input. He needed some coaching, some outside perspective that would help him kind of make sense of what he was dealing with and, how I could potentially come alongside him as a coach and consultant in this stage of his leadership journey. And then my 12 p.m. meeting was a mastermind that I'm a part of. Okay, I am a coach, but I also have a coach, right? Practice what I preach. And he was just giving us some input on some different structure for our offers and some marketing strategies and, troubleshooting some challenges that different guys were having in the cohort with their business models. So anyway, I say all that not because I think you're super interested in my day. I'm just highlighting how 4 different meetings in 4 hours can require 4 entirely different mindsets. And that is typical for a leader, right? Because this is the challenge. Your mental and emotional agility is critical to your leadership presence. Your ability to quickly shift from one meeting and one mindset to another. Your ability to quickly move from your last meeting to your current meeting without thinking about your next meeting, that attention agility will impact your effectiveness. Have you ever been in a conversation with somebody who was clearly not in the conversation with you? Okay, you know what I'm talking about? You can tell that their mind is somewhere else entirely, right? They're not looking at you, they're looking through you. They might be nice and polite and all that, but you can tell there's something else that their mind is fixated on. And so the conversation or the discussion is just not as good, not as effective as it could be. Now, be honest. How often are you that person? How often is someone thinking those things about you? I remember when I was a young leader, part of a staff team, I wasn't, the top dog. I was just, one of the lieutenants. And we would have a weekly staff meeting at this time period in this organization where everyone would just go around the room and kind of give an update on their departments and projects and whatever. And in a lot of cases, that was really the best time or sometimes the only time where you would get everyone in the room, together. And sometimes it was the only time that you were going to get direct input from the point leader. The problem was that the point leader often didn't seem like he was really paying attention to anything that anybody was saying, right? I mean, like you'd be talking and giving your report or update or whatever, and he's just, down on his laptop, clearly not taking notes on what you're saying. I don't know, answering emails or whatever, reviewing the report from the person who talked earlier in the meeting or whatever. And of course, that ended up becoming the culture of the entire team. You were talking, but nobody else in the room was really listening. Talk about a waste of a meeting, right? And that's because the point leader, and therefore none of the other leaders, because he was the one setting the tone, setting the culture, none of them had developed this discipline that I'm talking about. They were not fully in the meeting they were in. And I think that's just a glimpse into a bigger issue right now, and that is this. We have a massive communication problem in our society. We are inundated with transmission, but we are impoverished in understanding. We have more noise than ever before, but we don't really hear each other. We don't really understand each other. We're not really listening to each other. We've made transmission synonymous with communication, and nothing could be further from the truth. That's why you can be in a meeting for an hour and everyone talked, but nothing got decided and nothing's going to get done. That's why you can have a conversation with someone and get off the phone and think that something's going to happen and then nothing does or the exact opposite does. It's why you can have a good chat with, somebody on your team and you think you're on the same page, but then they get off of that call or out of that meeting and they go implement things that are exactly the opposite of what your understanding was of that situation. And the reason why is because there was transmission, but there was not communication. People were there, but they weren't really there. Okay, their body was in the meeting, but their mind certainly was not. They're present, but they're not bringing their presence with them, if you know what I mean. Okay, and by the way, this is not just an issue at work. This is an issue at home too. We talk about life and leadership in this podcast, right? And we know a lot of the misunderstandings, the miscommunications that you have with your spouse, with your kids, other friends, whatever. It's the result of not really being in the conversation you're in, or they aren't really in the conversation they're in, right? We're distracted. We're talking, while we're looking at our phone. We're trying to have a conversation while we're watching the game. They're trying to make a plan with you for the weekend, but you're still thinking about the last meeting you had at the office. Okay, so this idea of being where you are, being fully present, this is not just a work thing. This is a life thing. This is life and leadership. Okay, how do we do this? How do we stay fully present? How do we make those mental shifts from one meeting, one conversation to the next? Okay, like I had to do that day. How do we have 4 different meetings, 4 hours, 4 different mindsets? Okay, I'll give you a few thoughts here. These are things that have helped me do this, and hopefully they'll help you too. So I'm going to give you 4 things. And I'm going to make it really simple. They'll all start with the letter R, just so it's easy, to kind of remember and keep track. And these are just statements. These are just prompts that maybe will help you be where you are. Okay, the first one is the idea of role. Role. In every meeting you're in, you need to be able to answer this question. What is my role? What's my role in this meeting? Okay, when I was a kid, I used to change clothes all the time. Multiple times a day. Whatever I was playing, I had to be dressed appropriately and accordingly for that activity or that thing, right? So, when I was little, 4, 5, 6 years old, I could not play cowboys and Indians without getting my cowboy outfit on, the hat and the boots and the spurs and the gun and the badge, whatever, or my Indian outfit on, right? If I was going to play cowboys and Indian, I had to dress up like a cowboy or Indian. If I was going to play Army, I had to go put, my camouflage on and all that. If I was going to be a firefighter, I had to put the hat on and the rubber boots. My mom used to complain all the time because I would go through so many clothes in the course of a day or in a week because I just couldn't stand to do that specific activity without being dressed for the part. And as I look back on that, I realized that was just something that was deeply important to me, even at a really young age, was that I had to know my role to be fully present, to be fully engaged and fully immersed in that particular activity. And I think the same principle applies in all these other contexts and conversations and meetings that we find ourselves in, particularly as leaders. It is imperative that you know the role you play in every meeting you're in. You better know why you're in the room. Are you the leader in that setting? Are you a team member? Are you the buyer or the seller? Are you the negotiator? Are you the challenger? Are you the encourager or the teacher or the expert or the learner? If you don't clearly understand the role you play, you will not show up the way you need to, and you will not bring the right presence into that situation. And in the vast majority of cases, you know the role you play ahead of time, but you've got to have the mental acuity to dial into that. Okay, in my meetings that particular day, I was the encourager in one of the meetings. I was just a friend in another one. I was a challenger, a coach in a third one. And then I really was just a learner, a student in the last one. And if I came in the wrong role, if I brought the wrong energy into any of those meetings, it would have totally changed the dynamic, not just for me, but for everyone else. Okay, so part of making this shift from one meeting to the next, one conversation to the next, is knowing your role. Okay, knowing your role is what also allows you to know, number 2, your responsibility. Responsibility. Okay, these two are closely related, but I'm separating them because I think this is important. Okay, you have a role to play, but you also have a responsibility on what you need to deliver. Okay, and based on the role, that determines the responsibility. Okay, based on my specific role in each of those meetings, I had a specific responsibility. Okay, when I know that going in, I'm more likely to have the mental agility and dexterity that I need to shift from one meeting to the next. Okay, if my role is the leader in one meeting, then in that meeting, my responsibility is probably going to be to facilitate that discussion. Maybe I'm giving a presentation. Maybe I'm soliciting, feedback or input from the team so I can make a decision. Okay, that's the frame of mind that I'm in. But in another meeting, if my role is just to be a team member, then my responsibility would look different, right? Maybe I'm giving an update to the group, or I'm pointing out an issue that's happening, or I'm requesting resources. Okay, in that particular day, right, as you go back to the meetings that I recounted for you, in that first meeting, I was not the leader. Okay, I was there to support the leader in that organization. And I wasn't even the person that was heading up that gathering. Okay, I was just one of a handful of people who were invited to be part of it. So what that means is that my responsibility in that setting was not to run the meeting, was not to make the decisions. It was not even really to offer any input or guidance necessarily. Although those are all things I'm fully capable of, I'm able to do, I'm willing to do. I naturally jump in to do those things, but those were not my responsibilities in that setting. Okay, my responsibility was just to be there as moral support and encouragement because my role was different. Okay, well, in a different meeting, I had a different responsibility, right? You fast forward to meeting 3, my 11 a.m., where I'm the coach, I'm the consultant, okay? In that meeting, I'm driving the conversation. I'm the one asking the questions. I'm trying to determine the causation for the issues that this guy is facing in his business and find conclusions or options that are going to help him navigate the challenges that he's facing, okay? Different role, different responsibility. Now, that seems obvious on the surface, right? And in a lot of situations, you might intuitively go into that meeting and just kind of know that and sense that. But what I would advocate here is that if you'll take 30 seconds, 60 seconds, just thinking this through, planning this out, preparing for your meetings on the calendar, in the morning, in a given day, before your day starts, so that you have your mind wrapped around your role and wrapped around your responsibility ahead of time, it makes a world of difference in terms of how you walk into each of those rooms, how you make those mental shifts, those mental adjustments. Okay, because I had thought this through, it was a lot easier for me to flip those switches in between those meetings and conversations. The best leaders don't wait until they're in the room to figure out their role and their responsibility. They decide ahead of time. They know before they walk through the door. They've already determined the bearing, the demeanor, the energy, the gravitas that they need when they show up. They don't waste time. They don't fumble opportunities by winging it. Their presence shows up as soon as they are present in the room. Now, I'd make one more note about this. There are times that it's appropriate to ask what the people in the room need from you, regardless of what your role is. In fact, that second meeting that day, the group call, with friends who are challenging each other, holding each other accountable, that's a pretty common thing we do in that group. We'll say, hey, I'm going to talk about this topic, and here's what I need from you guys. Okay, and if they don't do that, one of us will ask, hey, what do you need from us today? Okay, it's not a bad thing to ask that question. In fact, it'll elevate your status if you ask, regardless of what your role is. If you're the leader and you ask your team what they need from you, what you're going to do is solidify in their minds that you are there to serve them and to serve the organization that you all work in together. If you're a team member and you ask that of your team or of your leader, what it's going to show is that you're a team player. You want to be a contributor. You want your the thing you bring to the table to make a difference. Okay, so if you don't know what your responsibility is in a particular setting, ask, and you'll get a lot further in that meeting. Okay. 4 ways that you can make these mental shifts, develop this discipline to be fully present in the meeting that you're in. Number 1 is role. Number 2 is responsibility. Number 3, I'm going to use the word remember. Remember. One of the biggest challenges in shifting from one meeting to the next, from one role to the next, one mindset to the next, is that we often don't facilitate any mechanism that allows us to remember what action we need to take from the last meeting. So what we do is we end up carrying all of that mental noise into the next meeting. Some people's brains are like their browsers. Tons of open tabs processing in the background with no resolution and no real conclusion. Listen, your brain does not like open loops. Your brain wants a decision and a direction. It doesn't want ambiguity or uncertainty. It doesn't want things just kind of hanging on and hanging out and hanging around all the time. If you are going to engage at the highest level as a leader, you have to learn how to close those tabs, close those loops, so that all your brain's processing power can be allocated to the present meeting you're in and the current situation you're dealing with. If not, your whole operating system is going to start slowing down, start glitching, getting hung up. You're going to get the spinning beach ball if you're a Mac user. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, sometimes your brain is using up all of its RAM processing the last meeting that you were in because you haven't given it a way to shut down that tab. Okay, I know this is super simple and tactical, practical, whatever, but I'm honestly shocked at how many people don't do this. Just write things down. Whether it's on your phone or on a piece of paper or whatever, write it down. Because when you write it down, you give your brain permission to stop thinking about it. Because now your brain doesn't have to remember it. Okay, that information has been transferred to a place where you can see it, you can look at it, you can take action on it at the appropriate time. Okay, listen to me. Do not wait until the end of the day to try to remember and write down everything from every conversation and every meeting that you were in that day. Okay, do it in real time if you can. Do it at the end of the meeting if you have to, before the next one begins. But whatever you do, give your brain an out. Okay, let your brain off the hook. Give it the gift of freeing up the processing power that you can use instead of trying to remember what's important, what requires action, that it can be fully present in the meeting and conversation it's in. I'm telling you, this makes a huge difference when you do that because it allows all of your brain power to be in this meeting rather than in the last meeting. Role, responsibility, remember, and the last one is release. Release. And this is as straightforward as it sounds, but just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, right? You do have to actually release what happened in the last meeting, in the last conversation, the last phone call, last email, last text message, so you can be fully present in this one. Okay, carryover doesn't work. If you bring that energy into this space, it's going to mess everything up. Okay, you have to develop the discipline to let go of the meeting or the conversation you were just in so that you can fully engage in the next one. Think of each meeting you're in as an entirely different room that you walk into. And when you walk through the door, you left that room and now you're in this room. You can't be in two rooms at the same time. You can't be in two meetings at the same time. You can't be in two conversations at the same time. Not really. Okay, you have to leave that room, leave that meeting, leave that conversation behind so you can be fully present and fully engaged in this one. Too many people, too many leaders try to have one foot in this room and one foot in that room, mentally trying to be in multiple conversations or meetings at one time. And all it does is divide their attention and dilute their impact. So you have to release. Okay, like Elsa said, let it go. And I know it's not an easy thing to do because you're emotionally invested in the last meeting. Maybe it ended poorly. Maybe there was just no resolve. Maybe you're carrying the stress of it or the fear that it created or the frustration, whatever it is. Okay, but this is what's required of you as a leader. You have to learn how to let go and release that one so you can be in this one. All right, let's review. Leadership requires that you be able to shift quickly from one meeting to the next, from one mindset to the next. It requires you to be fully present and fully engaged in whatever conversation or meeting you're in. And you do that when you know your role, okay, what's the part that you're playing in this meeting, when you know your responsibility, the thing that you need to deliver on based on the context and the role that you have, when you have mechanisms that help you remember so that you free up brain power to be fully here wherever you are, and when you release, when you walk all the way through that door so you're no longer in the previous room, you're in this room. Now, I know all that seems simple, maybe straightforward. You look at it on paper, so to speak, and it seems easy enough, but this takes intentionality. It takes discipline to develop this. This is not something that you do in a day. This takes work and focus and practice. But if you are going to stand up to the rigors of modern organizational leadership, you will have to learn to do this. You have to learn how to quickly move from one meeting to the next and be fully present. You have to learn how to truly be where you are. And when I think back to that particular day, 4 meetings, 4 hours, 4 mindsets, I think these are the things that enabled me to do that, at least somewhat successfully. These are the practices, these are the disciplines that I have developed over the years that allow me to make those shifts easily and quickly. I know my role, I know my responsibility, I know how to remember what's important, and I know how to release one so that I can move into the next. All right. I hope that helps. And I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 4 do you think you need to work on the most? And is there something else you would add to this list that helps you be effective in really being where you are? Drop it in the comments or shoot me a DM. And if this would help somebody share it with them. That'd mean a lot to me. And as always, if you can like and share and subscribe, it helps us find more people and helps more people find us so that we can help them grow in their life and in their leadership. You can find me at themattware.com and at themattware on all the social channels. But until next time, make sure you do what it takes to be fully present, to be where you are so that you can go lead better and go live bolder.